splitting this into two parts.
Makes sense. There's a lot to cover.
Exactly. Today, we are talking about the first four movies, and then in the next deep dive, we'll discuss the last four movies, the so-called Christopher McQuarrie era.
Right, the more recent run.
For this deep dive, we've pulled together quite a bit. Behind-the-scenes stuff, critical thoughts, even how the original TV show kind of, set the stage.
Yeah, understanding that context is pretty key, I think.
Okay, let's jump right in. Mission 1, 1996's Mission Impossible, directed by Brian De Palma.
Yeah, and De Palma, he brings a certain style. What's really interesting from the get-go is how it connects, but also how it really diverges from the classic TV show.
The original show was less action, more intricate, right? Espionage, mind games.
Exactly. It was very much an anthology focused on the team, the plan, the suspense. Super successful, won awards. It wasn't really about one central hero figure in the same way.
So then the movie lands, introduces Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise, obviously, and bam, the Prague mission goes totally wrong. Team wiped out almost.
Right, and Ethan's immediately framed. He has to go rogue, clear his name, find the real mole who stole this CIA NOC list.
And this is where they made that huge kind of controversial choice with Jim Phelps.
Oh, definitely. Jon Voight plays him, and in the show, Phelps was the hero, the leader. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it somehow. He's the villain, the double agent.
That must have caused a stir.
It really did. Some of the original TV cast and a lot of fans, they felt it was a betrayal of the character and the show's whole ethos. They thought it leaned too heavily into action-adventure, losing that strategic, subtle element.
And killing off most of the team right at the start. That's a bold move.
Yeah, a very bold move. It changed the whole dynamic. But, despite that backlash from some quarters, it worked. It launched this massive franchise.
And it gave us some truly iconic sequences, even back then.
Absolutely. That vault heist sequence, silent, tense, pure De Palma, channeling Hitchcock almost. Very different from the huge scale stuff later on.
And the train sequence at the end with the helicopter. Still pretty spectacular.
Definitely. Even though some critics, found the plot maybe a bit convoluted, lots of twists and turns to keep track of.
Yeah, you do need to pay attention.
But the action, the suspense, Cruise's performance, Voight, Ving Rhames as Luther Stickle starting his long run, it got praise. Earned a decent, 65% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And didn't Anthony Hopkins have a tiny uncredited role?
He did, as Ethan's boss, Swanbeck. It kind of started a little trend in these movies. Emilio Estevez was also uncredited in this one as part of the team that gets taken out early.
And speaking of intense scenes, that final train sequence, wasn't there something about wind machines?
Oh, yeah. Apparently, during filming, Cruise and Voight had to deal with wind machines blasting at, 140 miles per hour. Insane.
Well, and Cruise personally convinced the French high-speed rail guys, the TGV, to let them film on their trains.
That's the story. Shows his commitment even back then.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Then comes Mission Impossible 2 in 2000. Different director, very different style.
Oh boy, yeah. John Woo takes over. And you get peak John Woo.
Doves, slow motion, guns akimbo.
All of the above. It's incredibly stylized, very early 2000s action vibe, definitely influenced by stuff like The Matrix too, but mostly Woo's own Hong Kong action classics.
And I remember someone online, maybe Reddit, saying it was like jumping from Fast and Furious 1 straight to F9 in terms of just ramped up craziness.
That's actually a pretty good comparison. It really leaned into the spectacle, which, some people loved, others not so much.
Why the division? Too much style.
Possibly. Some critics and viewers felt it was style over substance. The action, while visually flashy with all the slow-mo, felt maybe a bit derivative of Woo's earlier work to some, and stylistically it maybe hasn't aged as well as some of the others.
What was the actual plot again?
Virus, right.
Yeah, a deadly engineered virus called Chimera, and the antidote, Bellerophon. Ethan's chasing a rogue IMF agent, Sean Ambrose, played by Doug Ray Scott, who's stolen both.
The classic bioweapon threat.
Pretty much. Ambrose plans to release the virus and then sell the antidote back to a pharmaceutical company he wants to control. Standard action movie stakes, really.
Were there any weird stories from this one? I feel like I remember something.
There are a few fun ones, like apparently in the trailer, Cruise greets Ving Rhames in Australia with this big, cheerful, "Welcome to Australia, mate," in an Aussie accent.
And it's not in the movie?
Nope. Cut. Maybe they thought it sounded like he was mocking it. Who knows?
Yeah. Anything else? Well, the shoot apparently went on for quite a long time, long enough that it caused Doug Ray Scott to miss out on playing Wolverine in X-Men. Hugh Jackman got the part instead.
No way.
Yeah, and Thandie Newton reportedly had to drop out of Charlie's Angels because of the scheduling overlaps.
Wow, production delays having real ripple effects.
Definitely. And then there's the really obscure one. Someone claims you can faintly hear sound effects from the video game Roller Coaster Tycoon in the background of a dialogue scene.
Seriously, that's bizarre.
If it's true, yeah. Unintentional audio goof. Oh, and the movie cover supposedly shows Cruise wearing a jacket in the final scene, but he doesn't actually wear one in the film itself. Minor detail, but funny.
Any callbacks to the first film?
A small one. Anthony Hopkins' character, Swanbeck, again uncredited, I think, asks Ethan if he wants a cappuccino, which is funny because Ethan asked about getting a cappuccino machine back in the first movie.
Nice little touch.
Yeah.
And Cruise's cousin is a henchman.
Yep, William Mapother plays one of Ambrose's guys.
Okay, one more thing on this one. Didn't they get the science wrong with the virus?
Oh, yes. The film shows the virus infecting red blood cells. But mature red blood cells in humans, they don't have a nucleus or the machinery needed for viruses to replicate. So biologically, that wouldn't really work.
Good catch. So yeah, visually distinct, but maybe why many fans consider it the weaker link in the chain.
Often, yeah. That style over substance criticism seems to stick with MI2 for a lot of people.
Right. Okay, moving on. 2006 brings Mission Impossible 3 and a new director again, this time J.J. Abrams. His first movie, right?
His first feature film, yeah. He got the job because Tom Cruise was a big fan of his TV show Alias.
Makes sense. Spy show connection. And this one felt different again. More personal, maybe.
Definitely. It starts with Ethan seemingly retired from fieldwork. He's training new IMF recruits, and he's engaged to Julia, played by Michelle Monaghan. Critically, she has no idea what he really does. Thinks he works for the Department of Transportation or something.
The quiet life.
Yeah.
Which obviously doesn't last.
Not at all. He gets pulled back in when one of his proteges is kidnapped by this absolutely terrifying arms dealer, Owen Davian.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Incredible performance. Hoffman as Davian is just chillingly calm and ruthless. Many people think he's the best villain in the entire series.
He was amazing. So Davian has some mystery weapon, the rabbit's foot.
Yep, the classic MacGuffin. We never actually find out what it is, which is kind of Abrams' style, the mystery box idea. But the real stakes become clear when Davian finds out about Julia and threatens her life. That makes it intensely personal for Ethan.
Yeah, that opening scene is rough. It sets a darker tone right away.
It really does. And Abrams brings that sense of pacing and suspense he honed on TV. Some say it almost looks like a TV show in parts compared to the others. But in terms of building tension moment to moment, he's very effective.
Any interesting behind-the-scenes stuff here?
A couple of quirky things. Ethan's house in the movie was apparently designed to look a lot like J.J. Abrams' actual house in L.A.
He must have found that weird.
He said it was a little disturbing, yeah. And Maggie Q, who plays one of Ethan's team members, actually learned how to drive a Lamborghini for her role.
Nice work if you can get it.
Right. Then there was that slightly disastrous promotional campaign.
Oh, yeah. The newspaper boxes.
The newspaper vending boxes, yeah. Paramount put audio players inside some of them in LA that would play the Mission Impossible theme when opened.
It could possibly go wrong.
Well, people panicked. Some thought they were bombs. One newsstand even got blown up by the bomb squad as a precaution. Not the buzz they were hoping for, I imagine.
Yikes. How did the film do overall, though? Critically?
Pretty well, actually. Got a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes. People liked the action, the darker tone, and especially Hoffman's performance.
Weren't there supposed to be other big names involved originally?
There were. Initially, people like Scarlett Johansson, Kenneth Branagh, Carrie-Anne Moss, even Ricky Gervais were attached at various points. But there were delays. Cruise went off to do War of the Worlds. The original director, David Fincher, left. Then Joe Carnahan left.
Wow, quite the shuffle.
Yeah, so the cast changed. Simon Pegg came on board as Benji, starting his run, and Michelle Monaghan got the role of Julia. Apparently, Rachel McAdams turned it down, and it was during auditions for Julia that Cruise met Katie Holmes.
History happening behind the scenes. Any little goofs or cameos to look out for?
A couple of small things. There's apparently a line from one character, John Musgrave, who's secretly working with Davian that's kind of verbally redundant if you listen closely.
Okay.
And a fun one. When Ethan does that building-to-building swing, Luther incorrectly calls the setup a fulcrum when it's acting as a pendulum. Minor physics quibble.
Oh, flows.
And J.J. Abrams himself pops up. He's supposedly one of the hands working on Ethan in the hospital scene, and he's the voice on the phone offering Julia that trip to Mexico.
Keeping in the family.
Sort of. The cinematographer, Dan Mindel, is also a doctor in that scene, and a craft service guy plays a hospital employee. Plus, a postcard sent by one agent has the name H. Kelvin on it. That's a recurring Abrams Easter egg, a tribute to his grandfather.
Always planting those little seeds. Okay, that takes us to the fourth film, 2011, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Big changes again.
Huge changes, directed by Brad Bird.
The Pixar guy, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, his first live-action movie.
Exactly, which was kind of surprising, but also exciting. And Paramount greenlit this one, even though MI3 hadn't done quite as well at the box office as the first two. They still believed in it.
They kept it pretty secret during the production too, right? Code name?
Yeah, the code name was Ares. Keep things under wraps.
So what's the setup this time?
This time, the entire IMF gets shut down. They're implicated in a bombing at the Kremlin, so the president initiates Ghost Protocol. The agency is disavowed, and Ethan and a small team, including Simon Pegg's Benji, now in the field, Paula Patton and Jeremy Renner as analyst William Brandt, have to operate completely off the grid.
Going rogue again. But this time the whole organization is gone.
Exactly. They need to clear the IMF's name and stop a nuclear extremist from starting a war.
And Brad Bird, coming from animation, how did he approach it? Did he get much freedom?
Apparently, almost total creative freedom. The studio had some ideas for big set pieces, like the Burj Khalifa sequence, but they didn't have a solid story connecting them. Bird was the one who brought in the brilliant idea of having all their cool IMF tech start malfunctioning.
Ah, so they can't just rely on the gadgets. That's a great twist.
It really raises the stakes and forces them to improvise. It adds a layer of fallibility that's really effective. Interestingly, the original ending they considered had Ethan actually becoming the new IMF secretary, with Renner's character, Brandt, taking over as the main field agent.
Oh, right. There was that period where Jeremy Renner seemed like he was being set up to take over multiple franchises.
Exactly. That didn't end up happening here, obviously, but it was apparently part of the initial thinking.
But the thing everyone remembers from Ghost Protocol,
Yeah.
it has to be the Burj Khalifa.
Oh, absolutely. Tom Cruise actually climbing the outside of the tallest building in the world, mostly without a stunt double. It's just breathtaking, one of the most iconic movie stunts ever.
And utterly insane. His commitment is unreal.
It really is. And apparently, his dedication inspired the rest of the cast and crew, too. They knew they had to bring their A game. The production team went through massive safety planning for that sequence.
I bet. You can't just wing that.
No way. They worked closely with Dubai Studio City, built special rigs, consulted climbers, had multiple safety harnesses, those famous suction gloves. Crews trained extensively, learning specific rappel techniques. It was a huge undertaking.
And ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, helped make it look seamless.
Yeah, they did crucial work digitally, removing the safety wires and rigs, making it look even more dangerous. They also did CG extensions for some shots and worked on other big sequences, like that huge sandstorm car chase. Ghost Protocol was actually a big film for ILM technologically, using new rendering and scene management tools.
So high-tech behind the scenes, too. Any Pixar nods from Brad Bird?
Of course. The classic Pixar Easter egg, A113, which is a classroom number from CalArts where many animators studied.
I know that one.
It appears on an agent's ring in the movie, and it's also used as part of a code, Alpha 113. Brad Bird's Twitter handle is even at BradBirdA113.
Love it. Where else did they film? I remember Moscow.
Moscow, Dubai, Mumbai. But interestingly, a lot of the Moscow scenes, and maybe others, were actually filmed in Prague, in the Czech Republic. Movie magic.
Any little mistakes people caught?
A minor one. In a scene set in a multi-level car park in India, the cars are apparently a left-hand drive, like in the US. But in India, like the UK, they drive on the left, so the cars should be right-hand drive.
Ah, the details. But overall, this one was a huge hit, right?
Massive. Critically acclaimed, a stunning 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it became the highest grossing film in the entire series up to that point. It really revitalized the franchise.
It felt like it. Even with that initial idea maybe Renner would take over, it cemented Cruise's Ethan Hunt as the core, while also showing the series could evolve with new directors.
Absolutely. And Brad Bird proved that his incredible sense of pacing, visual storytelling, and fun from animation could translate perfectly to live action. He brought a fantastic energy to it.
It really set a new benchmark for the series.
It certainly did. It showed the franchise could deliver sophisticated plots, incredible practical stunts, and still have that sense of fun and teamwork.
Okay, well that covers the first 4 missions. An incredible start and evolution for the series.
Definitely. From De Palma's Hitchcockian thriller to Woo's balletic action, Abrams' personal stakes, and Bird's high-wire spectacle.
That concludes our initial deep dive into the first 4 Mission Impossible films. We've uncovered some thrilling behind-the-scenes stories, surprising trivia, and the evolution of this iconic action franchise.
Quite a ride just getting through these 4.
Thanks for listening, and join us next time when we will complete our mission with fun facts about Rogue Nation, Fallout, Dead Reckoning, and The Final Reckoning.